I'd like to explain how Shavuot became fattened up from a simple harvest festival into the multi-layered festival that we have today. Torah tells us that there are 3 festivals of harvest in the year. 3 times a year you should hold a harvest festival for me. You shall observe the Feast of Matzot, eating unleavened bread for 7 days, as I've commanded you in the spring month, for that is when you left Egypt. And the Feast of Hakatzir, the harvest of the first fruits of your work, of what you sow in the field, and the Feast of Ha'asif, the ingathering at the end of the year, when you gather in the results of your work from the field. So there are 3 harvest festivals set out in Torah. Using the names we know today, that's Pesach, the early spring harvest, when the barley is harvested. Shavuot, the late spring harvest, when the wheat ripens. And Sukkot, at the end of the autumn and the agricultural season. They are so clearly laid out that the later teachers couldn't ignore any of the 3. But Pesach was a week long, and it marked the exodus from Egypt. It had commandments to hold a special dinner to tell the story to your children, the Seder, and to eat special food, matzah. Sukkot was also a week long. It marked the 40 years of wandering in the desert, with commandments to build a hut and to wave the lulav and etrog, symbols of the harvest. But poor Shavuot. It lasted only 1 day. It did not remind us of any special event. It did not have any special commandments or traditions, when there was no longer a temple to go to, no special food or symbol. So the tradition set about trying to help it out, to build it up, and the rabbis took on this challenge with imagination. However, one thing that Shavuot did already have going for it was the countdown, called the Omer. Through the previous 7 weeks, Torah had already instructed that you should count every day from the day after Seder night, the first night of the Omer. So it's 7 weeks to Shavuot. The 15th night of the Omer, so it's just under 5 weeks to Shavuot. The 40th night of the Omer, so it's 5 weeks and 2 nights gone, which means 1 week and 5 days to go, and so on. After the Torah was completed, it didn't take long to notice that there was another festival to be celebrated 7 weeks after the festival of Matzot, marking the exodus from Egypt. And there was also a hugely significant event, the giving of Torah at Mount Sinai, about the same time after the exodus from Egypt. The natural conclusion, therefore, was to marry the 2, the festival and the event, together, and give Shavuot the historical significance of Matan Torah, giving Torah. Many generations later, a tradition even emerged in Sephardi, Spanish, Portuguese communities of having a marriage document, a ketubah, indicating the renewal of the marriage contract between God and the Jewish people. So what can we do about the fact that Pesach and Sukkot each last a week, but poor Shavuot only lasts a day? Well, the first thing is to make an observation about that. People would come from all over the land to bring their harvest gifts to the priests in the temple in Jerusalem. That's a fair journey by foot or by cart. You'd want to make a holiday of it. And indeed, the word holiday comes from holy day. Anyway, with thousands of people bringing their offerings and gifts, washing and purifying themselves in the ritual baths after their dusty journeys, and climbing these steps to the temple, it would take days. Surely it couldn't all be done on the 1 day. So a week makes sense. But Shavuot only had 1 day. Given that it was in the middle of the harvest season, perhaps the locals popped up to the temple for the day, but I wonder whether it really ever was as important as the other 2 festivals. Anyway, the rabbis could hardly extend it and say, okay, now it should also be a week long, since they'd be dramatically contradicting Torah. But what they could say was, it may only be a day, but a day is made up of 24 hours. So let's use every one of them. Let's stay up through the night and study the 5 books of the Torah that was given to Moses on this day. And as we say that all the commentaries, the Mishnah and the Jerusalem Talmud and the Babylonian Talmud are also Torah, oral Torah. They were also given to Moses at Mount Sinai, so let's study them as well. That should keep us going through the night. We'll call it a tikkun leil Shavuot, a correction or completing or perfection of the night of Shavuot. You should recognize the word tikkun from tikkun olam, healing or fixing or perfecting the world. Distinctive food was important for a festival. The rabbis looked for special foods to eat on Shavuot. Rosh Hashanah has honey, Pesach has matzah, Hanukkah has fried foods. What can we suggest for Shavuot? And they decided on dairy foods, cheese and cheesecake, cheese pancakes and blintzes, milkshakes, ice cream. Why? Well, it seemed like a good idea. No other festival had dairy, and cheesecakes are especially delicious. But if you want some connections, the rabbis can find you plenty. The Torah makes the Jewish people grow up strong and healthy, just as milk makes a baby grow up strong and healthy. And in the Song of Songs, said to be written by King Solomon, the Torah is compared to milk, as it says, like milk and honey, Torah lies under your tongue. The rabbis prided themselves on being able to argue and prove something in many ways. One game they played was giving words a number value. Since every letter has a number value, Aleph is 1, Bet is 2, and so on. And so we're told that Moses was up Mount Sinai when he went to get the Torah for 40 days and 40 nights. And the number value of the word chalav, milk, happens to be 40. We call this gematria. Oh, and here's another one. In Psalm 68, Mount Sinai is called Ha-Gavnunim, mountain of majestic peaks. And Gavnunim sounds similar to Gavina, which means cheese. Having sorted out the time and the food, the rabbis looked around for other things to add. On Rosh Hashanah, we wear white for purity and dress the Torah and the Ark in white. On Sukkot, we build leafy huts and shake the lulav and etrog during the service. On Hanukkah, we light the Hanukkah menorah or Chanukiah. What can we do for Shavuot? And they found a tradition, a midrash, that when God gave Torah at Mount Sinai, a barren mountain in the middle of the desert, suddenly it was covered in flowers and bushes. So let's cover the synagogue in flowers and greenery, they decided. Many years later, incidentally, a great rabbi, the Gaon of Vilna, prohibited having trees brought into the shuls because they looked too much like Christmas trees. And the rabbis had another gift to give Shavuot. People would come to services to remember their loved ones who had died if there was a short yizkor or memorial service added on. I think they did it where services were otherwise not very well attended, like the last day of Pesach. And so they added one to Shavuot as well, as an extra reason to come along. Whether adding an extra part to the service encourages more people to come today is a different question. So let's summarize. According to Torah, there are 3 harvest festivals in the year. Chag HaMatzot, the festival of unleavened bread, Chag HaKatzir, the festival of the harvest, and Chag HaAsif, the ingathering. The first and the last last for a week, but the middle one only lasts for a day. Torah tells us to count 7 weeks from Seder night to get to the festival of the harvest. So over time it became known as the Festival of Weeks, or Shavuot. And also over time it was understood to be the anniversary of the giving of Torah. Shavuot lasts one day, but the whole 24 hours are celebrated by studying both written and oral Torah through the night at the Tikkun Leil Shavuot. The services may be decorated with flowers and greenery and include an extra memorial service, and they may have reference to a ketubah or marriage contract between God and the Jewish people. The services and the study are accompanied by cheesecake and other dairy foods. Yeah, I like that tradition.